I went to the airport to send a friend off and was stunned to find my husband embracing his mistress in the departure lounge. I stepped closer and overheard, "Everything is set. That idiot is about to lose everything." I just smiled because my world shattered not with a bang, but with the sickening whisper of a lie. Imagine finding out your entire life was a meticulously crafted deception, and the man you married, the father of your child, was planning not just to abandon you, but to utterly destroy you. The air at JFK crackled with 1,000 stories, a symphony of hurried goodbyes and hopeful arrivals. Sunlight, sharp and cold, streamed through the terminal's vast windows, illuminating the swirling dust motes as I stood amidst the chaotic hum, my heart already heavy. My best friend, Chloe, had just disappeared into the boarding line for Miami, half an hour late, but insistent I shouldn't wait. "Go home to David," she'd urged, hugging me tight. "You'll see me in a week." But I was in no hurry to go home. For months, our house had felt less like a sanctuary and more like an echo chamber of absence. David, my husband, a senior partner at his law firm, always came home late, muttering about urgent cases. When he was there, his mind was miles away, a constant, impenetrable fog. Even the news of my pregnancy hadn't sparked the joy I'd yearned for. "Maybe he's just stressed," I'd whispered to myself, caressing my still barely there belly. As a family physician, I was used to analyzing symptoms, but when it came to David, my professional instincts vanished, replaced by a desperate, hopeful blindness. I decided to grab a bottle of water before facing that empty house. I walked towards a small coffee shop in the departure lounge, and there, my world didn't just crack, it splintered into a million jagged pieces. Tucked away in a corner, almost hidden by a large pillar, was David. My David. The man who, just last night, had kissed my forehead and told me he had an urgent business trip to Chicago. He was wrapped around a young blonde woman in a flashy pink suit, their embrace not of colleagues, but of teenagers lost in a desperate, forbidden passion. The floor beneath me seemed to evaporate. My pulse hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. My mouth went bone dry. I instinctively recoiled, ducking behind the nearest pillar, praying to God they hadn't seen me. I watched, frozen, as David stroked her hand, whispering something. The woman laughed, a tinkling, confident sound that pierced through the airport noise. It was Lisa. My stomach clenched. Lisa, the paralegal from his office. The same 25-year-old he'd mentioned so casually. Lisa had a great idea to streamline documents. Lisa is brilliant. Lisa stays late for overtime. Now, the true nature of their streamlining became horrifically clear. A wave of nausea washed over me, far beyond morning sickness. This was the crushing weight of betrayal. 5 years of marriage. Our son, Leo. Another baby on the way, 12 weeks along. Had it all meant so little to David? Every fiber of my being screamed to rush forward, to rip them apart, to unleash a storm of fury. But something held me back. Some deep, primal survival instinct, or perhaps the doctor in me, the one trained to gather every detail before making a diagnosis. I moved, slow and deliberate, weaving through the bustling crowd, using other passengers as shields. Closer, I needed to be closer. I needed to hear. "Soon everything will be settled," David murmured, caressing Lisa's cheek. "In court, we'll get everything, down to the last dime." Lisa's voice was tinged with a nervous edge. What if she suspects something? David scoffed, a dismissive wave of his hand. "Sarah? She's too trusting. A doctor, not a lawyer. She doesn't understand the complexities of estate law. Besides," he smirked, his eyes hardening, "she's pregnant now. Emotionally unstable. Even if she did understand, who would believe her?" My teeth ground together, a burning rage searing through my veins. Emotionally unstable? Oh, I would show him what instability truly looked like. But what if she sees the documents? Lisa persisted, still uneasy. The documents? The evidence? The will? David's voice was dripping with smug confidence. "It's all in my red folder. And that folder is in my office. She has no access." He leaned in, his voice dropping to a seductive purr. "After the hearing, we'll be millionaires. And your wife? Your son? He shrugged. I'll file for divorce. I'll leave her enough so she doesn't starve. I'll take the boy. A boy needs his father. He paused, then added, almost as an afterthought, and the one on the way? We'll see. Maybe it won't even come to term with all this stress. My blood ran cold, then boiled with unadulterated fury. This man, the father of my children, was calmly outlining a plan to not just destroy my life, but to rob me blind, steal my son, and dismiss the life growing inside me as a mere inconvenience that might not come to term. They're calling for boarding for Miami, Lisa said, rising, a satisfied glint in her eyes. Time to go, honey. Miami. Not Chicago. Another lie for the collection. David pulled her close, kissing her deeply, passionately. A kiss I hadn't received in over a year. In 1 week, he whispered, we'll be free. And rich. I watched them walk away, something fundamental inside me breaking. It wasn't my heart, that was already numb. What had shattered were my illusions, my trust, my faith in him, in our family. But as the initial pain subsided, it was replaced by something cold, sharp, and calculating. A pure, unadulterated rage. David had profoundly underestimated his wife. Yes, I was a doctor, not a lawyer. But I was intelligent, observant, and possessed a memory like a steel trap. And, most importantly, I had something David utterly lacked, a conscience. The red folder. In the office. The words echoed in my mind. I had a spare key to his office, a small silver one David had given me for emergencies. It seemed the emergency had arrived. A faint, chilling smile touched my lips. David wanted to play a game. Fine. But he'd forgotten that in any game, there could only be one winner. And Sarah Miller had no intention of losing. I pulled out my phone and dialed Brenda, Leo's caregiver. Brenda, it's Sarah. Could you watch Leo tonight? Something urgent has come up that I need to attend to. Yes, very urgent business. It was time to find out what that red folder truly contained. When I got home, 4-year-old Leo met me at the door, clutching a crayon drawing, Mommy and Daddy holding hands, a smaller stick figure between them. Mommy, look. It's us, the family, he beamed with innocent pride. I knelt, hugging him fiercely. How could I explain to him that his family was a shattered illusion, that his father had chosen another woman and was ready to take everything from us? It's beautiful, sweetie, I choked out, kissing his head. Where's Daddy? He asked, his eyes wide. He said he'd bring me a toy from his business trip to faraway Miami. Miami. What would he bring back? Lisa? A ring? A ticket to a new life? I thought bitterly. Brenda, our elderly caregiver, studied my pale face. Honey, you look like you've seen a ghost. Is something wrong? It's nothing, Brenda. Just tired, I lied, forcing a smile. Brenda, I need to go to David's office. It's urgent. Could you stay with Leo until tomorrow? Of course, dear. But what's so urgent it can't wait until he gets back? It really can't, I said, my voice firm. I gave Leo his dinner, tucked him into bed, and read him a story about a good wizard who vanquished evil witches. He fell asleep, a sweet smile on his face. If only everything were as simple as in fairy tales, I thought. At 10 that night, I got into my car and drove towards the imposing skyscraper that housed David's law firm. He'd been a senior partner for 3 years, a position of prestige and power that had provided us with what I thought was a comfortable, secure life. The firm occupied 2 floors. David's corner office on the 2nd floor, with its large windows, mahogany furniture, and leather armchairs, had always exuded an air of solid, trustworthy success. I parked on a quiet side street. The surrounding offices were dark, the workday long over. The only sounds were the distant hum of traffic and my own racing heart. I took out the small silver key. Attached was a keychain, a miniature scales of justice, a gift I'd given David on our 1st anniversary. Justice above all else, he'd proclaimed then. What a cruel irony, I thought, the cold metal digging into my palm. The firm's main door opened easily. I moved silently, my heels making barely a whisper on the marble stairs as I ascended to the 2nd floor. David's office greeted me with the familiar scent of expensive cologne and leather. Piles of neatly stacked documents sat on his desk. A safe was tucked into a corner, and shelves lined the walls, filled with binders. None of them were red. I switched on the desk lamp, the soft glow illuminating my grim resolve. First, the desk drawers, standard papers, pens, stamps. In the bottom drawer, hidden beneath old invoices, I found a USB drive labeled Personal. I pocketed it. Might need that. Next, the filing cabinets. Files organized alphabetically by subject, wills, deeds, inheritance cases. Many binders, but no red ones. Where could it be? I muttered to myself. I checked behind the expensive modern art painting in the safe, which was empty under the rug. Then my gaze fell on a small, nondescript cabinet in a dark corner. I walked over and saw it was secured with a simple padlock. Strange. Why lock something inside your own office? I tried a few keys from David's keychain. The third one clicked. The cabinet door swung open, revealing several red folders, neatly stacked on a shelf. There they were. My heart hammered against my ribs. The first folder was labeled Morales E. The name didn't immediately ring a bell. I opened it to find the will of an elderly woman leaving an apartment and a country house too. My God. David Miller. The second folder, Castro RN. A will with a substantial sum of money, again in favor of David Miller. The third, Jennings EC. This name was familiar. Aunt Eleanor. My late mother's sister, who had passed away childless 6 months ago. She had always intended to leave her inheritance to me, her only grandniece. Opening the folder, I saw a will in which all of Aunt Eleanor's properties, an apartment on the Upper East Side, a house in the Hamptons, her substantial bank savings, were bequeathed to David Miller, a close family friend. "You bastard," I whispered, the words tasting like ash. I had seen Aunt Eleanor's original will. She had shown it to me herself a month before she died. It clearly stated, "I bequeath all my assets to my grandniece, Sarah Miller." Her signature, the date, the notary seal, all perfectly legal. And now, before me, was a forgery. A very well-made one. David had used his position, his expertise, to replace the genuine documents. I took out my phone, my hands shaking slightly, and photographed every page of the fake will. Then I examined the rest of the folders. 7 in total. 7 forged wills, worth millions. How long has he been doing this? I wondered, a cold dread seeping into my bones. Judging by the dates, the fraud had begun 3 years ago, right around the time David was promoted and gained access to these types of documents. But the horror didn't stop there. Beneath the last red folder, I found a second cell phone. David's secret phone. I unlocked it using Leo's birthday. A model father, indeed, I thought bitterly. The screen illuminated a trove of text messages between David and Lisa. "Honey, I settled another document today." Old Mrs. Morales didn't even realize she wasn't signing a will for her grandson, but a deed of gift in my favor. When she dies, a mansion in Greenwich will be ours. Love, you're a genius. Soon we can buy a villa in Italy and live there like royalty. And let your wife stay with her medicines and her patients. Lisa, we just have to close the last case. My wife's inheritance. That's where most of the money is. After that, we disappear. I'll file for divorce, take the boy, and we'll both go to Italy. I photographed every single message, a toxic brew of rage and disgust churning inside me. Not only were they cheating, but they were systematically robbing defenseless elderly people. How many families had lost their legacies to their greed? Then I opened David's laptop. The password was the same. Leo's birthday. In his email, I found even more damning evidence. Diagrams of the fraud, lists of victims, money laundering plans. All meticulously organized and chillingly detailed. Arrogant fool, I hissed, copying the files to the USB drive. David had been so utterly sure of himself, he hadn't even bothered to encrypt the information. After the laptop, I returned to the red folders. In one of them, a single document made me gasp, my face draining of all color. A petition. To strip me of my parental rights over Leo, based on the defendant's mental instability and her inability to provide adequate care for the minor. The document was dated for the next day. So that was the plan. First, secure the inheritance with a fake will. Then, take my child, claiming I was mentally unfit after losing everything. And Lisa would step in, a ready-made wife and mother for their new life. Not on my watch. I carefully returned all the folders to the cabinet and locked it. I had the evidence. I knew the enemy's plan. It was time to prepare the counterattack. I turned off the desk lamp, closed the office door, and walked back down to the first floor. Outside, a light drizzle had begun. I got into my car, the USB drive clutched in my hand. It was too late for business calls now, but tomorrow morning, the real battle would begin. David expected an easy victory against his trusting, emotionally unstable wife. Instead, he would receive a lesson he would never, ever forget. I caressed my belly. The baby was too small to stir, but I felt an undeniable connection. "Forgive me, little one," I whispered to my unborn child. "Mommy will do everything to protect you and your brother, Leo." As I drove home, my mind raced, already mapping out my strategy. First, find the best lawyer. Then, contact the defrauded families. And, of course, prepare a very special surprise for my dear husband upon his return from his business trip. David thought he was smarter than everyone. But tonight, he had lost the most important game of his life, and he didn't even know it. The next morning, I woke with a steely, unshakable determination. The previous night had unveiled not just David's infidelity, but the full, horrifying scope of his crimes. I knew exactly what I had to do. First, I took Leo to daycare, giving the teacher strict instructions. Only I or Brenda could pick him up. David was not to come near our son until this nightmare was over. Then I went to the health clinic where I worked, requesting an immediate leave of absence for urgent family matters. Back home, I locked myself in my study and opened my laptop. Online, I meticulously searched for renowned lawyers specializing in family and criminal law. The first number I called was answered immediately. Roth and Associates. A calm male voice. "Good morning. My name is Sarah Miller. I need an urgent consultation regarding fraud and document forgery. One moment, please. I'll connect you with Mr. Roth. He handles those cases personally." Julian Roth, a man in his 40s with a pleasant voice and an air of quiet competence, listened patiently. After a brief, harrowing summary of the situation, he agreed to meet me in 2 hours. "Bring all the documents and evidence you have," he advised. "If everything you're telling me is true, we could be looking at a very serious case." My next call was to Thomas Reed, a private investigator recommended by a colleague. "I need a background check on 2 people," I explained, my voice flat. David Miller, a senior partner at a law firm, and Lisa Serrano, 25, his paralegal. "I'm particularly interested in their financial situation, connections, and possible accomplices." "Understood. The standard fee is $5,000 for a complete dossier on each. It will take us 3 days." "Agreed. But I need the results sooner. I'll pay extra for the urgency." After speaking with Thomas, I tackled the most delicate, gut-wrenching part of the plan, contacting the families David had defrauded. In those red folders, I'd found addresses and phone numbers. The first call was to Daniel Morales, grandson of Elena Morales, the same elderly woman David had tricked into signing a deed of gift instead of a will. "Hello, Daniel Morales?" "Yes. Who is this?" His voice was wary. "My name is Sarah Miller. I am the wife of David Miller, the lawyer who handled your grandmother's documents." "Oh, yes, I remember. Why are you calling?" "Daniel, I have very bad news for you. Your grandmother was the victim of a fraud. Instead of a will in your favor, she signed a deed of gift to my husband." There was a long, stunned silence on the other end. "What? What are you saying?" "But my grandmother wanted to leave me the house." "Exactly. And I am willing to help you get justice. I have proof." The conversation lasted half an hour. Daniel was in shock, but he agreed to meet. I gave him my contact information, promising to call him in the next few days. The rest of the calls followed a similar, agonizing pattern. Mariah Castro, daughter of Robert Castro. The nephew of Sofia Andrade. The son of Michael Pacheco. They all believed their relatives had died without leaving an inheritance, but in reality, a cunning lawyer had stolen it all. By noon, I had a database of victims. The total damage exceeded $20 million. David and Lisa had built a criminal enterprise. At 1 p.m., I arrived at Julian Roth's office. He was a tall, kind-faced man. His office was classic: dark furniture, leather-bound books, portraits of famous jurists. "Well, Sarah, let's see what you've brought me," he said, gesturing to the chair opposite his large desk. I laid out the printouts of the photos from the red folders, the copies of David's emails, and the list of victims. Julian studied the documents in silence, occasionally raising an eyebrow, a flicker of disbelief crossing his face. "The scale of this is astonishing," he said finally, his voice grave. "Your husband has created an entire system for stealing inheritances, and he's acted with incredible skill, professionally forging documents using his position. What will happen to me? I'm the wife of a con man. If you are not part of the system, nothing. In fact, you are a victim. Your husband planned to strip you of your inheritance and take your son. Plus, there are the emotional damages for the infidelity." He paused, looking at me directly. "And what will happen to him with this evidence?" "Grand larceny, forgery of a public document, abuse of power. At least 10 years in prison. Maybe more." A strange, cold satisfaction bloomed in my chest. Justice. It would be served. What do I need to do? First, file a complaint with the NYPD. I will help you draft it correctly. Second, gather all the victims and organize a class action lawsuit with the district attorney's office. Third, file for divorce and request full custody of your son. And what if David tries to flee? He's abroad right now. We'll issue an international arrest warrant. With this evidence, he won't get very far. We talked for another hour, meticulously discussing the strategy. Julian agreed to represent me and all the victim families. The fees wouldn't be small, but the result would be worth it. Leaving his office, a wave of relief washed over me. The plan was in motion. I had allies, and the evidence was undeniable. All that was left was to wait for David's return. On my way home, I stopped at the bank to check our joint accounts. As I'd expected, large sums had been withdrawn. David was indeed preparing to flee. But in my personal account, opened years before we married, I had my savings from years of working as a doctor. It was enough. Enough for Julian, enough for the expenses for the next few months. At home, I brewed a cup of chamomile tea and sat down, my mind churning through the information. Thomas Reed had already sent preliminary data on Lisa Serrano. He discovered she was married to Mark Serrano, a construction engineer. They lived in a modest apartment in Queens, carrying debts. Mark, apparently, had no idea about his wife's activities. Another deceived spouse, I thought, a bitter taste in my mouth. I looked up Mark Serrano's profile on social media. An ordinary man in his 30s, photos at work, family pictures with Lisa. In the latest ones, just a month ago, they looked like a happy couple. Lisa, smiling, hugging him. A month later, she was planning to run off with my husband. I sent Mark a private message. "Good afternoon. I'm Sarah Miller. I need to talk to you about your wife, Lisa. It's a matter concerning your family. Could we meet tonight?" The reply came in half an hour. "What happened?" "Lisa is on a business trip. She isn't back for a week." "That is precisely what we need to talk about. It seems not everything is as you believe." Mark agreed to meet at a coffee shop near his home at 7 p.m. I picked up Leo from daycare, gave him dinner, and left him with Brenda. The boy asked when Daddy would be back, and I vaguely replied, "Soon." The coffee shop was a small, cozy place with checkered tablecloths and the comforting smell of freshly baked pastries. Mark Serrano was already there, sitting at a corner table, nervously checking his watch. He was average height, with a kind face and worried eyes. He stood when he saw me. "Sarah Miller?" "Yes, that's me. Thank you for agreeing to meet." We ordered coffee, and I got straight to the point. "Mark, what I'm about to tell you may come as a shock, but you have the right to know the truth. Did something happen to Lisa?" "In a way, yes. Your wife is cheating on you with my husband, David. And together, they're involved in a large-scale fraud scheme." Mark's face went pale, his eyes wide with disbelief. "That's impossible. Lisa wouldn't be capable of that." "Yes, she is. I laid out the printouts of the text messages between David and Lisa and the photos I'd taken at the airport the day before. Mark read in silence, his left eyelid twitching uncontrollably. "Since when?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "According to the messages, for a year, maybe more." "And the fraud?" "They're stealing inheritances from elderly people. Lisa helps David forge wills. In 3 years, they've stolen over $20 million. Mark pushed the papers away, burying his face in his hands. "My God. I thought we were fine. She said she was working overtime for our future. We were planning how to buy a bigger apartment, go on vacation. Mark, they were planning to disappear. They only had one last job left, to steal my inheritance. Then they planned to resign and move to Italy. As for our marriage, Lisa was going to file for divorce. In the messages, she refers to you as a burden she had to get rid of. Mark's hands clenched into fists. In his kind eyes, a raw, devastating anger mixed with pain. 3 years of marriage. I was crazy about her. I worked 2 jobs to support us. And she. He couldn't finish the sentence. "Mark, I understand how painful this is for you. It's for me too. But we have an opportunity to get justice. What do you suggest? We join forces. I've already spoken with a lawyer. I've contacted the victim families. Tomorrow, I will file a complaint with the NYPD. You can be a witness to the infidelity and Lisa's involvement in the fraud." "And what will happen then?" "David faces a minimum of 10 years in prison. Lisa will lose her job, her reputation, and possibly go to jail as well. All the stolen money will be returned to its rightful heirs, and we can have our marriages annulled under favorable conditions." Mark was silent for a long time, weighing the offer. "You know," he said finally, his voice thick with emotion, "I consider myself a good person. I don't wish harm on anyone, not even my enemies. But what Lisa did, it's a betrayal, not just to me, but to all those elderly people they robbed." He looked up, his eyes meeting mine, firm and resolute. "So, you agree to help?" "Yes, I do." We talked for another hour, discussing the details. Mark was not only a decent man, but also pragmatic. He agreed to monitor Lisa upon her return, record their conversations, and gather more evidence. "By the way," he said before leaving, "I have copies of all of Lisa's documents, passport, criminal record, tax returns. When we applied for the loan for the apartment, the bank asked for everything. Maybe it will be useful." "I'm sure it will." "Thank you, Mark." "Thank you. If it weren't for you, I would still be living a lie, completely clueless." They exchanged numbers, promising to stay in touch. I now had another ally in this fight against the traitors. Back home, another surprise awaited me. Thomas Reed had sent a detailed report on David and Lisa's financial dealings. He discovered that in 3 years, they'd purchased several properties under straw names: a condo in the Caribbean, a house in the mountains, a plot of land outside the city. All bought with stolen money. In addition, Thomas had uncovered accounts in tax havens in Cyprus and Switzerland. The total amount of their hidden savings exceeded $7 million. David and Lisa were meticulously preparing for a life of luxury abroad. But they wouldn't get it. I promised myself that. I went to bed late, but slept soundly. Tomorrow, the most important day would begin. David and Lisa would return from their business trip, only to find their meticulously laid plans had utterly crumbled. And Sarah Miller, from a victim, had become a hunter. The next day, I woke with the acute sensation that my life was about to fundamentally shift. Outside, the sun was shining, a hopeful sign. I had breakfast with Leo, took him to daycare, then headed directly to the Central NYPD precinct. Sergeant Dave Jenkins, the officer on duty, listened attentively to my story. When I placed the thick folder of evidence on his desk, his eyes widened. "Grand larceny," he muttered, flipping through the documents. "This is enough for an entire organization." He looked up, his expression grim. "They're returning from abroad soon. If we don't act, they could escape." "Understood. I'll pass the case to Detective Ramirez," he shouted down the hall. Detective Ava Ramirez, a woman in her mid-40s dressed in a sharp suit, walked into the office. She had the no-nonsense air of someone who didn't tolerate fools. "What do we have?" she asked, sitting down. Sergeant Jenkins summarized the situation. Ava took the documents, studying them with professional interest. "Good work," she said after 10 minutes, looking at me. "Sarah, where did you get such detailed material?" "I accidentally discovered my husband's plans and decided to do my own investigation." I met her gaze evenly. "Breaking into someone else's office is a crime, I know. But I used the key my husband personally gave me. And I didn't steal any documents. I only photographed them." Ava nodded slowly. "Technically, you're right. Besides, the public benefit of your action is clear. We will open a case and initiate the arrest. As soon as your husband sets foot in the country, we'll take him in. We have sufficient grounds." I signed the complaint and gave a detailed statement. The process took 3 hours. Leaving the police station, I felt a powerful sense of the law being on my side. My next stop was Julian Roth's office. He already had the documents prepared for filing in court. Divorce petition, request for full custody of the child, division of assets, he listed, plus compensation for emotional damages of $500,000. Isn't that too much? No. Considering the infidelity, the attempt to strip you of your inheritance and take your son, it's even a little conservative. But the courts are. They rarely award such large sums. Still, it gives us a strong basis. We discussed the strategy for the case. Julian was optimistic. With such evidence, the outcome is practically guaranteed. At 3 p.m., I met with the representatives of the victim families. Daniel Morales came with his mother, an elderly woman who could barely hold back her tears. "My mother-in-law wanted to leave the house to her grandson," she said, her voice trembling. "She worked her whole life, saving every penny. And that scoundrel stole it all." Mariah Castro, Robert Castro's daughter, was more determined. "I want that lawyer to rot in jail. My father left me an apartment and savings for my children's education. Because of Miller, my children might not be able to finish their studies." In total, 7 families gathered. The total damage amounted to nearly $20 million. Julian explained the process of filing a class action lawsuit and assured them of the return of the stolen assets. "When Miller is arrested, we will freeze his assets," the lawyer said. "Apartments, country houses, bank accounts, cars, everything will go towards compensating the victims." In the evening, I received a message from Mark. "Lisa told me she's coming back tomorrow morning. I'm ready for the conversation." "Good luck," I replied. "Remember, record everything." At 10 p.m., Thomas Reed called. "Sarah, I have news. Your husband and his mistress landed at JFK an hour ago. They're in a taxi right now." "Thank you." So, the most exciting part starts tomorrow. I went to bed early but found sleep elusive. Tomorrow, David would discover his plans had failed spectacularly. How would he react? Would he try to flee, feign ignorance, or surrender immediately? At 6:30 a.m., a call jolted me awake. David's number flashed on the screen. "Hello." I answered, my voice deceptively calm. "Sarah, it's me. I've landed." His voice was normal, no trace of guilt or worry. "How was the trip? Did you like Chicago?" "Yes, everything was fine." "Hey, today I have to go to court for your Aunt Eleanor's inheritance case. Remember I told you about it?" "Yes, I remember." "And what will happen?" "It's just formalities. The will is in order, but there's a small detail to correct. No problems at all." I smiled to myself, a bitter, chilling curve of my lips. Even now, he was still lying. "David, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "How is Lisa? Did she have a business trip too?" The silence that followed was too long for such a simple question. "Lisa? Oh yes, she's fine." "Why?" "No reason. You mention her a lot lately. She's a good employee." "That's all." "Well, I have to get ready. See you tonight." "Of course, dear." I hung up, a cold satisfaction settling in my chest. David had no idea that his triumphant court appearance today would become his monumental downfall. Detective Ramirez had promised me yesterday that he would be arrested upon arrival at the courthouse. At 8 a.m., I took Leo to daycare and headed to the courthouse. I needed to see it with my own eyes, to watch the world of the man who had planned to destroy my life crumble. The building was its usual chaotic self: lawyers, plaintiffs, defendants, witnesses, all rushing from one place to another. I found the courtroom where Aunt Eleanor's inheritance case was scheduled. At 9:30, David arrived. He was impeccably dressed in his best suit, briefcase in hand, radiating confidence and calm. Beside him walked Lisa, demure in a discreet black dress. Her demeanor was professional, but I saw David subtly brush her hand. "We'll get the last million and be free," I heard him murmur. "Yes, free of money, of work, of reputation," I replied in my head. At 10 a.m., the hearing did not begin. Judge Avachin, already pre-briefed by Detective Ramirez, was waiting. David and Lisa sat inside the courtroom. I entered, accompanied by Julian Roth. David saw me and his face drained of color. "Sarah? What are you doing here?" "Defending my rights, dear. The right to Aunt Eleanor's inheritance, which you plan to steal." "What are you talking about? What proof?" David stood up, indignation rising in his voice. "That's absurd. I'm a lawyer with an impeccable reputation." "Impeccable." Until yesterday, I said, my voice steady, ice in my veins. At that moment, two people in plain clothes entered the courtroom. Detective Ramirez and an officer. David saw them and recoiled. "David Miller," Detective Ramirez announced, her voice cutting through the tension. "You're under arrest for the crimes of grand larceny and forgery of a public document. You have the right to remain silent." "What?" "You're mistaken." Lisa sprang from her seat, but the second officer was already approaching her. "Lisa Serrano, you're under arrest as an accomplice in the crime." "I didn't do anything," she shrieked, her composure shattering. "It was his idea." "We'll discuss that at the station," the officer replied, indifferent. They cuffed David. He turned to me, his eyes wide with shock and incomprehension. "Sarah, what is happening?" "It's a mistake, right?" "There's no mistake, David. You wanted to rob me and take my son. But you miscalculated. It turns out I'm not the foolish, credulous wife you thought I was. But we're a family. The family ended when you decided to cheat on me with Lisa. And especially when you started robbing defenseless, elderly people." They led David and Lisa out of the courtroom. Lisa was sobbing uncontrollably. David walked in silence, his head bowed, his world collapsing around him. Judge Chin postponed the hearing until the circumstances were clarified. "Congratulations," Julian said, shaking my hand. "The first blow was a direct hit." "Thank you. But this is just the beginning. There's a lot of work ahead." Leaving the courthouse, a strange, profound peace settled over me. Revenge, they say, is a dish best served cold. And today, David had tasted the first bitter bite. David and Lisa's arrest was just the opening act of a cascade of horrifying revelations. I returned home, the initial high of justice giving way to the cold, stark reality of what I had lost and what still lay ahead. At noon, Mark Serrano called. His voice was tired, confused. "Sarah, Lisa hasn't come home. I'm worried." "Mark, sit down. What I'm about to tell you is going to hurt." I told him what had happened at the courthouse. Mark listened in silence, sighing, his world also imploding. "So, they arrested her?" "Yes. She's in a detention center right now, along with my almost ex-husband." "Ex-husband?" "I filed for divorce this morning. After what he's done, we have no future." "And what will happen to Lisa?" "It depends on many things. If she cooperates with the investigation, testifies against David, she might get a suspended sentence. If she remains stubborn, she faces several years as an accomplice in a fraud of this magnitude. 3 to 7 years in prison." Mark was silent for a long moment. "You know," he said finally, his voice raw, "I thought I'd feel sorry for her. But I don't. She not only cheated on me, but on all those people they robbed. Let the law deal with her." "Mark, Detective Ramirez will want to talk to you. Your testimony is important for the case." "Of course. I'm willing to help." In the afternoon, I picked up Leo from daycare. He asked about Daddy, and I chose my words carefully. "Daddy did something wrong, sweetie. Now he has to answer for it." "And will he come back?" "Not soon, my love. Maybe he'll never come back. Now it will just be you and me. You, me, and everything will be okay." Leo, like a tiny philosopher, simply nodded. "Mommy, you won't leave me, right?" "Never, my love. Mommy will never leave you." I hugged him tighter, the ache in my heart intensifying. The next day, the true, agonizing work began. Detective Ramirez summoned me for a detailed statement that lasted 4 hours. At the end, she looked at me, her gaze both respectful and weary. Sarah, thanks to you, we've uncovered a huge fraudulent scheme. It turns out there are more victims than we thought. How many? For now, 12 families. The total damage exceeds $35 million. I was stunned. David's depravity was even greater than I had imagined. And the accomplices? Besides Lisa Serrano, we've identified 2 more, a real estate appraiser, Andrew Stone, and a real estate agent, Tanya Navarro. They helped manage the transactions with the stolen properties. Will they be arrested, too? We already arrested them last night. After the interrogation, I went straight to Julian Roth. He greeted me with good news. The court has accepted your divorce petition for processing. Given the circumstances, the process will be quick. And custody of Leo? David will lose his parental rights due to his arrest and the criminal case. Leo will stay with you. And the properties? All of David's assets are frozen. Apartments, country houses, bank accounts, cars. Everything will go towards compensating the victims. You will get half of the marital property not related to the crime. That's the apartment where you live now. In addition, monetary compensation for your share in other properties and your aunt's inheritance. Julian's voice softened. The fake will has been declared null and void. You will get everything that is yours. The apartment on the Upper East Side, the house in the Hamptons, the bank deposits. I calculated mentally. Including Aunt Eleanor's inheritance, I would become a wealthy woman, with more than enough for a comfortable life for Leo and me. By the way, about the child. Julian began, but suddenly a sharp, searing pain shot through my lower abdomen. The stress of the past few days, the shock, the constant adrenaline, it had been too much. Julian, excuse me, I have to go, I gasped, clutching my stomach. I don't feel well. Of course, Sarah. Take care of yourself. On the way home, the pain intensified, relentless. I tried to stop at a pharmacy, but a dizzying wave hit me, and everything went black. I woke up in a hospital bed, surrounded by doctors and nurses. And there, in that sterile, white room, I learned the most devastating news yet. I had lost the baby. The pregnancy had been terminated. I cried until there were no tears left, the grief a raw, open wound in my soul. When I finally calmed down, I called Brenda, asking her to pick up Leo from daycare and bring him to her house. I couldn't bear to explain this to him yet. I spent 3 days in the hospital. When I finally walked back into my apartment, the emptiness of it was suffocating. But I had Leo. He needed a happy, healthy, and loving mother. An hour later, Brenda brought him to me. I hugged him, burying my face in his soft hair, deciding for now not to tell him about the little brother who was no longer in Mommy's belly. That evening, Thomas Reed called. Sarah, I have news about your husband's financial dealings. I'm listening. We've found 3 more accounts in tax havens. The total sum of stolen money exceeds $45 million. David prepared his escape very, very thoroughly. Can that money be recovered? We're in contact with international agencies. The process is complex, but there's a chance. The next day, I received an unexpected call. It was Lisa Serrano from the detention center. Sarah, it's Lisa. They gave me one call. I'm listening. My voice was cold, devoid of emotion. I want to tell everything. Testify against David. But I have one condition. What is it? Meet with me. There are things you need to know. About what? About what David planned to do to you and your son. It's much worse than you think. Curiosity, a morbid fascination, overcame my aversion. I agreed to meet. The detention center was a grim, concrete building in an industrial park. The visiting room was stark, bare walls, a metal table, 2 chairs, bars on the single window. Lisa looked terrible. Her hair was messy, her clothes wrinkled, her eyes red and swollen from crying. There was no trace of the self-assured, flashy woman I'd seen at the airport. Thank you for coming, she whispered, her voice weak. I'm listening. I want you to know I never wanted to hurt you. David told me you 2 hadn't loved each other for a long time, that the divorce was inevitable. And you believed him? I asked, my voice flat. I was in love, blind and stupid. He promised he'd marry me, that we'd buy a house in Italy, have children. Sarah, I'm pregnant. With David's child. I found out last week. A sharp, unbearable pang shot through my heart. He was going to have a child with his mistress, while my own baby hadn't survived. Why do you think it's David's? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. My husband and I were careful because I was going to leave him for yours. We always use protection. With David, not so much. She looked away. And what else did you want to tell me about David's plans? Lisa hesitated, a shudder running through her. He didn't just plan to divorce you. He planned. She swallowed hard. He planned to kill you. After you gave birth. To make it look like an accident or postpartum depression. My blood ran cold, the air in the room suddenly thin. Are you kidding me? No. He has contacts in the criminal world. People who know how to eliminate obstacles. David said it was simpler. No need to divide assets in the divorce. And you kept quiet? My voice was barely a growl. I thought he wasn't serious. That they were just words. I thought he was just trying to shock me, impress me. And when did you realize he was serious? When he showed me pictures of those people. Told me how they worked. Then I got scared, but it was too late. I was his accomplice. I was numb with shock. So he hadn't only planned to rob me and steal my child. He'd planned to murder me. I had been miraculously saved by discovering his schemes at the airport, by pure chance. Lisa, do you have proof? Text messages with those people. David thought he deleted them all, but I took screenshots. I saved them on a USB drive. Where's the drive? At my house? In a small pink box on my dresser. Why are you telling me this? Her eyes, raw and red, met mine. Because I realized David is a monster. He used me, just like he used you and everyone else. And when he no longer needed me, he would have discarded me too. And my husband, Mark? Mark is a good man. I was an idiot to betray him. Now I want to at least redeem part of my guilt. What do you want in return? Tell Mark I'm sorry. And let him know the truth about the child. After the meeting with Lisa, I went straight to Detective Ramirez. The new information radically changed everything. A contract killing? Ramirez asked, her eyes narrowed. Are you sure? Lisa is willing to testify and has evidence. Then this isn't just fraud. This is an organized crime group. We need to conduct an additional operation. Ramirez immediately organized a search of Lisa's apartment. Mark let them in, showing them exactly where the USB drive was. There, indeed, they found the text messages. David with two individuals, Ricardo Suarez and Alex Ramirez, both with criminal records. We need to solve the problem with the wife radically, David had written. After she gives birth, she'll be depressed. A suicide wouldn't be surprising. Understood. The payment? Suarez replied. $200,000. Half upfront, half after. Agreed. I read the messages, a chilling terror gripping me. They weren't just cheating. They were planning to eliminate me with the same coldness a normal person plans a vacation. We need to arrest Suarez and Ramirez, Ramirez said, her voice tight. Do you have any information on them? No, but I can ask Thomas Reed. He has contacts in the underworld. Thomas responded quickly. In 2 hours, he sent a detailed dossier on the two suspects. Ricardo Suarez, a hitman with 2 murder convictions. Alex Ramirez, his partner, an expert in simulating accidents. Professionals, Ramirez muttered, looking up. If their plan had succeeded, Sarah, you wouldn't have suspected a thing. And in a few months, you would have been the victim of an accident. In the evening, I met with Mark. He looked sad but firm. Did Lisa send you any message? He asked, his voice strained. She asks for your forgiveness. And she wants you to know she's pregnant. Mark turned pale. With my child. According to her, you two were careful. With him, she wasn't. And now Lisa realizes David just used her. She regrets it. And what will happen to the child? Mark asked, his voice hollow. That's her decision. But if she has it, she'll raise it alone. David will be in prison for a long time. And I can't forgive her after all this. That's your right, Mark. No one will judge you. Mark also wanted to start a new life, free. of lies and betrayals. He had already filed for divorce. The next day, Suarez and Ramirez were arrested. In their search, weapons, false documents, and messages from other clients were found. It turned out David was just one of the group's many clients. "This is turning into a federal case," Ramirez said, her eyes gleaming. "They'll probably transfer it to the main office." "And what will happen to David?" "Attempted murder will be added to the fraud charge. Now he's not facing 10 years, but much, much more." I felt a strange, complete satisfaction. Justice had truly triumphed. David would get what he deserved for all his crimes. A week after the arrests of Suarez and Ramirez, the investigation escalated to an entirely new level. I received a summons, but it wasn't Detective Ramirez's office that awaited me. Instead, it was a large, imposing conference room. At a long table sat several people in suits. In the center, a man in his 50s with medals on his uniform. "Sarah, let me introduce you to Commander Samuel Black, head of the Organized Crime Unit," Detective Ramirez said. "Please have a seat." "What we are about to discuss now," Black began, his voice deep and authoritative, "must remain in the strictest confidence. We have some questions for you." "Go ahead." "I'm listening." "Thanks to you, we have uncovered a large criminal network. But we have reason to believe that your husband is not the leader, but just an enforcer." "You mean he has a boss?" "Someone who provides him with information about potential victims, organizes the sale of stolen properties, and offers protection." My brow furrowed. In David's messages, no boss was mentioned. "And where does this information come from?" Pamela Serrano, Lisa, has given an additional statement. "It turns out David met regularly with a certain Uncle Nick. He gave him a share of the profits and received instructions for new targets." "And who is this Uncle Nick?" "We don't know yet. David refuses to talk, but we have some leads." Black pulled out a folder of photos. "Security cameras captured your husband meeting with an older man near a restaurant on the Upper East Side. The last meeting was 2 days before his trip to Miami. In the photos, I saw David with a gray-haired man wearing an expensive coat. The man's face was turned away, but his general figure was visible." "Does this face look familiar to you?" "No, I've never seen him." "And the voice? Has David ever spoken on the phone in front of you with someone he called Uncle Nick?" I tried to remember. In recent months, David often spoke on the phone, going into another room, but I didn't recall hearing that name. "I don't recall such a conversation." "Understood." Then another question. David had access to the Notary Public's database, but the information about private clients, their income, properties, came from somewhere else. "Where exactly?" "Judging by the thefts, he had a source in the IRS or the banking system. Someone was passing him data on wealthy elderly people." I pondered this. It was true. How did David know the marital status of the clients, their heirs, the size of their savings? Could Uncle Nick be that source? It's very likely. That's why we need your help. But for that, David has to contact him himself. And why would he do that? If we promise him a reduced sentence in exchange for his cooperation, Black paused, his gaze assessing, or if he thinks he can escape. How? You mean you'll break him out of jail? Of course. Under our control. David will try to contact his boss, ask for help. We'll catch the contact and get to Uncle Nick. The risk is minimal. David will be under constant surveillance. At the first real escape attempt, he will be arrested again. I thought about it. The plan was risky but tempting. Capturing the entire criminal network would mean protecting countless other potential victims. Agreed. What do I have to do? Visit your husband in jail. Tell him you're willing to forgive him and help him. Maybe he'll share information about his boss. But I've filed for divorce. Tell him you've changed your mind. That love is stronger than resentment. The important thing is that you convince him of your sincerity." I agreed. The next day, I went to the detention center where David was being held. My ex-husband looked terrible, unshaven, thin, dressed in a prison uniform. There was nothing left of his former arrogance. "Sarah, I can't believe it." "You came," he croaked, his eyes wide with a flicker of desperate hope. "Yes, I came." I sat down across from him. "How's Leo?" "Eh. And the baby?" I lied, the words tasting like ash, but I needed him to believe my act. Forgive me. I was a fool. Lisa tricked me. The money blinded me. They're fine. I kept my voice soft, regretful. I've been thinking a lot about us. About our family. And what conclusion did you come to? That I don't want to destroy our family because of your mistakes. Yes, you were wrong, David, but we can fix everything. David's eyes lit up with a fragile hope. Are you willing to forgive me? I am. On one condition, tell them the whole truth about your accomplices. About who helped you, who gave you information. Maybe the investigation will be lenient and reduce your sentence. David hesitated, glancing around to ensure the guard wasn't listening. Sarah, it's complicated. There are people. It's better not to bother. What kind of people? Influential. Connected to the government. If I talk, not only will I suffer. David, you're facing life in prison. There can be nothing worse. Yes, there is. People like me don't last long in prison, especially if they find out I've ratted out the wrong people. Who are you talking about? David leaned in, his voice a desperate whisper. Uncle Nick. Arthur Sterling. Deputy Commissioner of the IRS. He runs the whole operation. I struggled not to show my surprise. A high-ranking government official. What exactly does he do? He provides information on wealthy taxpayers, lists of properties, data on heirs, marital status. And he also provides protection. If any relative suspects, he buries the case. In exchange for what? Half of the profits. Sterling takes the largest share, but he also runs the greatest risk. And now he probably wants to get rid of me. I know too much about his connections, his foreign accounts, his shell companies. David, what if the investigation guarantees your safety? What safety? Sterling has connections in the DA's office, in the courts, in the prison. He'll get to me anywhere. I realized I had crucial information. Now I just had to use it correctly. And what if you escape? Escape to where? I'm in a detention center. Anything can happen. A transfer to court, a medical checkup. He looked at me, a desperate glint in his eyes. Even if I escape, where would I go? Without money, without documents, to see Uncle Nick. He'll help you if you're useful to him. Sterling would only help me hide if I'm useful to him. And now I'm a risk and a burden. But if you offer him something valuable. Like what? For example, information about the investigation. What they know and what they don't. David thought about it. You know, maybe you're right. If I tell Sterling how the investigation is going, warn him of the danger. Maybe he'll help me flee the country. Try to contact him from here. All calls are monitored. Through a lawyer or by passing a note to a cellmate. He looked at me again, his eyes searching mine. Sarah, are you sure you're on my side? You're not working for the investigation. I pretended to be hurt. David, I'm your wife, the mother of your children. Of course, I'll always be on your side. Sorry. I think I'm going crazy in these walls. I understand. The important thing is that we find a way to get you out of here. David believed in my sincerity and promised to try to contact Sterling. I left with a sense of victory, a cold, hard triumph. In the car, I immediately called Commander Black. Samuel, I have a name. Arthur Sterling. Deputy Commissioner of the IRS. Sterling. Wow. We've long suspected his corruption, but we had no proof. Now we will. David is willing to contact him. Excellent. Let's start the operation. The operation to capture Sterling was codenamed Operation Vengeance. Commander Black personally supervised every stage. I had been a crucial part of the chain, but my active participation ended there. From now on, it's too dangerous, Black explained. Sterling is a serious adversary. He has connections, money, power. If he finds out you're working for us, he might try to eliminate you. But I want to see the end of this case. You've already done the most important thing. You've led us to the boss. The rest is for professionals. I agreed to stay on the sidelines, asking to be kept informed. Black promised regular updates. 3 days later, David's escape was staged. During a transfer to the courthouse, the prisoner transport van had a convincing accident. In the chaos, David escaped. In reality, he was released under the careful, hidden control of agents. David ran, desperate, and borrowed a cell phone from a bewildered college student, pretending to call an ambulance for an old man who'd fallen on the corner. From memory, he dialed Sterling's number. An unmarked car followed him from a distance. "Nicholas, it's David," he whispered urgently into the phone. "Are you crazy calling me directly?" Sterling's voice was tight with irritation. "I have no choice. I've escaped, but they'll find me soon. I need help." "What help?" "You're burned. Documents. Money. A way out of the country. I have information about the investigation." "What information?" "They know about you. They're looking for a certain Uncle Nick. They're about to locate you." There was a long, chilling silence on the other end. "Where are you now?" "In the city, with a borrowed phone. I'll hide in the basement of an abandoned building. Vasquez Street, number 15. Back basement. Wait there. In an hour, someone will come for you." The call disconnected. David returned the phone to the bewildered student and headed to the indicated location, followed by the agents. An hour later, a black Audi with tinted windows arrived. 2 men in leather jackets got out and entered the basement. "David?" One of them called out. "I'm here," David replied from the darkness. "Let's go. The boss is waiting for you." They bundled David into the car and drove off. 3 teams followed them, alternating cars and motorcycles, ensuring they wouldn't lose the target. The Audi stopped near a luxury restaurant, the Monarch on the Gold Coast. They took David through a back entrance to a private office on the 2nd floor. Behind a large, ornate desk sat Arthur Sterling, a man in his 60s with gray hair and a gaze like ice. Beside him stood 2 hulking bodyguards. Well, David," Sterling said, his voice laced with irritation. "What a mess you've made." "Arthur, it's not my fault. My wife turned out to be smarter than I thought." "Your wife is a minor problem. The problem is that you got caught, and that means you're dragging us all down." "But I haven't said anything. I've been quiet as a tomb." "For now, you're quiet. But what will happen when you face life in prison?" "You will sing like a canary." "I will keep quiet." "I promise." "David, you have disappointed me. I invested a lot in you. I gave you the chance to make millions, and you've ruined everything for a woman. Give me a chance to fix it. Help me get out of the country. I'll disappear forever." Sterling smiled dismissively, a cruel twist of his lips. "Abroad? Do you take me for a fool? In a month, you would rat me out to foreign special services in exchange for asylum." "No, David. I have a more radical idea." "What is it?" David's face paled, fear gripping him. "You die today. In an escape attempt. The dead do not testify." "Arthur, you can't do that." David backed away, his voice pleading. "I can and I will." "Alejandro, Victor," he said to his bodyguards. "Take him to the woods. Let him be breakfast for the wild dogs." The bodyguards advanced. David stumbled backward. "Wait. I have information." "What information?" "About the investigation. They're planning an operation against you. They know about your accounts." "How do you know?" Sterling demanded, his eyes narrowing, his posture suddenly rigid. "My wife. She told me. She's collaborating with the investigation." Sterling turned sharply. "What did you say? Your wife works for the police?" "Yes. She has found out about your plans. They plan to arrest you tomorrow." "You're lying." "No. Check it if you want." At that moment, the office door burst open. Agents in bulletproof vests poured in, weapons raised. "Hands up." Sterling tried to draw a hidden weapon, but was quickly subdued. His bodyguards did not resist. They knew they were finished. "Arthur Sterling," Commander Black announced, stepping forward. "You are under arrest for organizing a criminal group, corruption, and involvement in fraud." Sterling glared at David, his face contorted with pure hatred. "In the end, you betrayed me. You bastard." "First, I didn't want to." David whimpered. "You will rot in jail, rat." Commander Black himself put the handcuffs on Sterling. "The game is over, Arthur. We know about your foreign accounts, your shell companies, your bribes. There's enough for several life sentences." The arrest of Sterling was a bombshell. A corrupt official, the mastermind of a criminal scheme that had stolen hundreds of millions from the state. Cases like this made the front pages of every newspaper. I watched the news on television. David and Sterling in handcuffs, images of the raids, comments from experts. Justice had finally triumphed. In the evening, Commander Black called. "The operation was a success, Sarah. Thanks to you, we have dismantled the largest corruption scheme in recent years." "And what happened to the other accomplices?" "All arrested. Sterling, his people at the IRS, the real estate agents, the appraisers. The entire network has been dismantled." "How many years are they facing?" "Many. The court will decide." "And the damages?" "All assets are frozen. The victim families will receive full compensation." A week later, the hearing for my divorce from David was held. The process took half an hour. Given the overwhelming evidence of his crimes and infidelity, the court saw no reason to maintain the marriage. Leaving the courthouse, I felt a lightness I hadn't known in years. A dark, terrifying chapter of my life had finally ended. Ahead, a new beginning. Mark Serrano had also divorced. Lisa signed all the documents without resistance. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison, thanks to her cooperation with the investigation. She decided to have the child. 6 months passed since David's arrest. My life had completely transformed. I received Aunt Eleanor's inheritance, sold our apartment, and bought a large house in a quiet subdivision outside of New York, a place with a garden where Leo, now 5, could play. I worked in a small private clinic, enjoying a good income and flexible hours that allowed me ample time for my son. Leo adapted quickly to our new life. Children, in their resilience, often do. He went to a new daycare, made friends with the neighborhood kids. He no longer asked about his biological father. "Mommy, will I get a new daddy?" he asked one evening at dinner. "I don't know, sweetie. Would you like that?" "I want one who is good and doesn't hurt us." "If we get a new daddy, I assure you he will be good." I wasn't lying. After everything that had happened, I had become very cautious with men. Trust had to be earned, slowly, painstakingly. Mark Serrano became a frequent visitor to our home. At first, he came for practical matters, helping with repairs, fixing things around the house. Then, the visits became more frequent and less professional. Mark turned out to be a wonderful man, honest, reliable, hardworking. He immediately clicked with Leo, who was drawn to his sincerity and kindness. "Uncle Mark, can you be my daddy?" Leo asked him one afternoon. Mark blushed, looking at me with a soft, uncertain smile. "That's not for me to decide, Leo. The grown-ups decide that. But I want you to be my daddy. You are good." That evening, after Leo was asleep, Mark and I talked in the kitchen over coffee. "Sarah, I have to tell you something," he began, hesitantly. "I'm listening. I love coming here. I love being with you and with Leo. I feel at home." He looked into my eyes, a quiet earnestness in his gaze. I have. He struggled for the words. "Mark, just say it. I'm in love with you. I know it might sound strange. We've both been through such betrayal, but I think we can overcome it. Together." I was silent, weighing my words carefully. I liked Mark more than liked him. But after David, I was terrified to open my heart again. "Mark, I need time to think." "Of course. I'm in no hurry. I just wanted you to know how I feel." We continued to see each other for 3 more months before I agreed to a serious relationship. Mark was patient, understanding what I had endured, never pressuring me. Our wedding was simple, intimate, with only close friends and family. Julian Roth attended, having become not just my lawyer, but a true friend. "Sarah, you're incredibly brave," he said in a toast. "Few women are capable of fighting so masterfully for justice. You are an inspiration." Commander Black even sent a telegram. "I wish you all the happiness. Your courage uncovered a huge criminal scheme. You are a true hero." That evening, the newlyweds were finally alone. Leo was asleep. Mark and I sat on the terrace, looking at the stars, holding hands. "Are you happy?" I asked, a gentle smile on my lips. "What, for having joined my life with a woman with a past like yours?" Mark chuckled, then turned serious. Sarah, your past is what shows what a strong person you are. You didn't break. You didn't become bitter. You didn't give up. On the contrary, you fought until the end. There are very few women like that. And you're not afraid that I'll discover something again? I teased. I am terrified, Mark replied, his gaze unwavering. That's why I will always be honest with you. It would hurt me more to deceive you than anything else. We both laughed. In the year we had known each other, Mark had never given me a single reason to doubt him. He was an open book with no secrets, no double lives. The trial of David, Arthur Sterling, and their accomplices was widely covered by the media. They called it the case of the century, a monumental victory for justice. I attended all the sessions as a victim and witness. It was painful to see David again, but it was necessary. That dark story had to be put to rest. David looked terrible. He had lost weight, his hair had gone gray, his eyes hollow. There was nothing left of the arrogant lawyer. In his testimony, he tried repeatedly to justify himself. I didn't want to hurt my wife. I was confused. I was influenced. Influenced by whom? The prosecutor pressed. By Sterling. He forced me to join the scheme. He threatened me. And the attempted murder of your wife, did he force you to do that, too? We have text messages with the hitmen, Mr. Miller. You paid a down payment of $100,000. David was silent. There was no point in justifying himself. The evidence was overwhelming. Sterling was more dignified. He didn't justify himself, didn't blame anyone. He remained silent or answered in monosyllables. Do you admit your guilt? The judge asked. Partially. In corruption. The rest, let the court decide. The trial lasted 3 months. Dozens of witnesses were questioned, hundreds of documents reviewed. The sentence was harsh. Arthur Sterling was sentenced to life in prison. David Miller to 31 years. Lisa Serrano to 3 years. Leaving the courthouse, I felt a deep, profound relief. Finally, the story was over. David would no longer cheat, steal, or betray. Outside, Mark was waiting for me with Leo. How did it go? He asked, hugging me close. It's over. He got 31 years. That's a long time. It's fair. For such a crime and a murder plot, it should be more. And how do you feel? I thought about it. What did I truly feel? Joy? Satisfaction? Pity for my ex-husband? Peace, I finally replied. Justice has been served. Now we can move on. That evening at home, we celebrated the end of the trial. A simple family gathering. We toasted with a glass of red wine to our new life. In just over a year, everything had changed. From being a cheated wife, I had become a happily married woman. From a victim, I had become a hero, someone who brought justice to many families. 5 years passed since David's arrest. My life had settled down completely. I continued to work, my reputation as a doctor impeccable. Patients appreciated my professionalism and humanity. Our family also grew. 3 years ago, Mark and I had a daughter, Lily. She became the center of our universe. Leo adored his little sister, helping his parents care for her with a fierce, protective love. Now we have a big family, Mark said one evening, watching the children at the dinner table, just like I always dreamed. I was happy too. After all the trials, I valued the warmth of home, loyalty, the simple happiness of motherhood even more. David was serving his sentence in a maximum security prison. In 5 years, he never wrote, called, or tried to see his son. Leo had almost forgotten his biological father. To him, his father was Mark. Where is my real daddy? The boy asked one morning. He lives very far away, I replied gently. He did something bad, and now he's paying for it. And will he come back? Not soon, my love. And even if he comes back, we won't have contact with him. Why? Because he hurt our family. And you have to stay away from people who hurt you. Leo nodded like a little philosopher. Children understand more than adults think. Lisa served her sentence and moved to another city. According to rumors, she remarried. I was no longer interested in her fate. That chapter was closed. Sterling received an additional sentence for trying to bribe the prison administration. The victim families received full compensation. Many of them remained friends with me, grateful for my help. On my birthday, Daniel Morales came with his wife, Mariah Castro, with her children. They had become not just acquaintances, but true friends. "You saved our family," Daniel's mother said, tears in her eyes. "If it weren't for you, we would have lost the house our grandmother left us." "I was just defending myself," I replied. "And helping others was something that came up along the way." Julian Roth was also a frequent visitor. We were united not only by a professional friendship, but a deep personal one. "Sarah, you changed my life," he confessed once. "Working on your case showed me that law can be not just a business, but a service to justice." And what has changed? Now I take cases not only from wealthy clients. I help simple people who have been victims of scammers. That's wonderful. It means our story has brought something good not just to our family. From time to time, Commander Black called, asking about the family. "How are you, Sarah?" he'd ask. "Very well, Samuel. We live quietly, raising the children. No crime stories. No more, thank God. Once was enough. It's a shame, though. You would make a great detective." "Thank you, but I prefer to heal people than to catch criminals." On the 5th anniversary of David's arrest, our family went to our country house. We spent weekends and holidays there, by the river, hosting friends and family parties. "Mommy, tell me the story of the bad uncle," Lily, who was already 3, asked, nestled on my lap. The children knew a general version of the story, adapted for them, without the frightening details. "What bad uncle?" "The one who wanted to take our house." "Once upon a time," I began, my voice soft, "there was a bad uncle who cheated people. He stole their houses and their money. And he also wanted to steal our house." "And what did Mommy do?" "Mommy found out his plans and told the police. And the police caught the bad uncle and put him in jail." "And he won't get out?" "Not soon, sweetie. And when he gets out, we'll live somewhere else. And Daddy Mark will still be with us." "Of course, sweetie. Daddy Mark will always be with us." Lily, satisfied, ran off to play with her brother. I watched them, a profound sense of gratitude washing over me. 5 years ago, I was an unhappy wife, ignorant of my husband's double life, a victim on the brink of utter destruction. Now, I was a happy mother of 2, a respected doctor, the beloved wife of a good man. Mark came over, hugged me, and sat down beside me. We were silent, holding hands, each thinking our own thoughts. In 5 years, we had learned to value the simple joys, family dinners, the children's laughter, late-night conversations, plans for the future. Somewhere, David was serving his sentence, endlessly replaying how stupidly he had lost everything. Lisa was raising a child in another city, trying to forget the past. Sterling was spending his last days in a cell. And I, Sarah Miller, had built a new life on the ruins of the old one. A life without lies, without betrayals, without fear. A life filled with love, trust, and an unshakable faith in justice. Family secrets. That is what this story could be called. But the secrets were revealed, and the family found a new happiness. An honest, deserved happiness, built on the solid foundation of truth. What would you have done if you discovered such a betrayal? Would you have confronted him on the spot, or taken the time to plan your revenge? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's discuss this incredible journey of resilience and justice.